I'm holding a device that not only claims to allow users to listen to plants in real time, but also hold nature's song at your fingertips. Kind of like this. And if you're anything like me, you're probably thinking, what the f is going on here? And how? And why? How could this be real? And why did over 13,000 people buy this thing? Well, I intend to find out, and my plan is pretty simple. Step 1, I want to get it in my hands and try it out. Step 2, I want to test the claims that they make in all of their marketing. Step 3, I want to consult some experts and learn how exactly it works. And 4, let you know if it's the real deal or just another cheap gimmick. Well, I guess it's not cheap.
For me, this all started a few months ago when I was scrolling through the endless void that is TikTok, and I saw an advert for a device I just couldn't really believe. I thought it was so ridiculous that I sent it to a bunch of my friends and even my mom, who ended up calling me the next day to let me know that she not only had heard about the product, but was a complete believer in it. So naturally, I went back to TikTok to try to find other videos talking about the product, and this is what I saw.
You can dance if you want.
A lot of you have been asking, what do mushrooms sound like? And I found this really cool piece. Oh yeah, it's a tree. We have one connected there, and we'll listen to these connected through the tree.
Something interesting to note that while there are a lot of different videos showcasing the wondrous achievement that the Plantwave is, a lot of those videos are posted by either Plantwave or by Joe Patitucci, their CEO. Patitucci? Patitucci, Joe Patitucci. And you know, the last time I encountered this phenomenon was during my video about Nubrew, where the majority of the TikTok marketing was posted by accounts affiliated with Nubrew. But similarly to Nubrew, I felt I couldn't confidently talk about the product until I got it into my completely average sized hands. So in order to find out more, I bought it for $300. It cost $300. Anyway, once my loan was approved, my Plantwave was officially on its way, and with it, an onboarding email letting me know that I should download the mandatory app. Well, more accurately, instructions on how to enjoy nature's song. Soon after that, I received about 5 more emails, some of which focused on use cases, and some about the harmonies of the towering trees and the sweet melodies of vibrant flowers and the rhythmic whispers of various plants, and even the intriguing songs of the mushrooms. You know, quick aside, about 5 years ago, I was going through Indonesia and I was in the Bali airport and I met this dude who was like, I'm a celebrity yoga instructor. I feel like that's the demographic here. But I can only look at so many onboarding emails and I won't know more until I actually receive it and do extensive research on how the product operates. So in the meantime, let's look at where this thing came from in the first place. In 2011, Data Garden was founded by Joe Patitucci and Zach Tyson as a zero-waste record label. The mission was to find a way to minimize the amount of waste produced by physical media. And the way that they did this was by releasing digital albums that were printed onto a biodegradable paper with seeds embedded on the inside. Designed in such a way where once you get your music from the code, you can plant the paper and grow flowers from the seeds. Which I'm not gonna lie, I messed with the idea. I like it a lot, and I'm not the only one. Because in 2012, Data Garden was invited to create an installation at the Philadelphia Museum of Art. They partnered up with engineer Sam Cusimano and developed a system that led to the Data Garden Quartet.
Welcome to a special exhibition recording.
Which was a performance where tropical plants would generate music in real time. And a few years later in 2014, their new project known as the Mini Sprout would turn out to be an early prototype of the Plantwave that they sell today. And the Mini Sprout is a device that allowed musicians to use plants as MIDI triggers for electronic music. I'll touch more on what that means in a little bit, but all of that led to 2019 and the introduction of the Plantwave. So let's open it up.
So the Plantwave came in. It's in a nice little box with some eco-friendly tape on it. Our $300 little music machine is in here, and I'm very excited to see what all of our wonderful plants that are slightly underwatered sound like. And fittingly, I have a little leaf knife to help us open up this package. I'm excited to see how heavy it is. I feel like in all of the promotional videos, it kind of just looks like a piece of like, I'm not gonna say cheap plastic, but looks whatever. So in the box, we have the little Plantwave box itself. We also have some electronic sensors. They kind of look like what they put on you for an EKG. Wow, it looks pretty nice in person. So in order to make it work, it looks like I have to attach it to an app. So I have to download the app and get to pairing. But before I do that, I want to just kind of take in what it actually looks like and feels like. It kind of reminds me of like bar soap in texture and also in like size and shape. It just kind of feels like bar soap to me. There's one single USB-C plug on it, along with a couple of what look like audio ports and probably the port that you connect to the electronic sensors that came in the package. So to get started, I need to pair the device to my phone. There's a big button that says connect, and it immediately recognized that the Plantwave is on. I don't even have to hold down the pairing button like it says I do. So it looks like we're paired now. I think everything's set up right. The only last step I need to do is attaching these sensors to one of these plants. We'll start with this one right here. His name is IKEA Man, because I got it at IKEA. And all I think I have to do is attach these to the leaves, and we should hear music. I mean, it's making sounds. It's crazy loud. Hold on. Well, it's coming out of the phone. I don't know how well you can hear it right now, but I'm gonna record it. Wait, what did that say? Non-commercial use. If you want to use the audio in a commercial way, get in touch. But there's a few things I want to test right now as I'm recording this audio. The main thing I want to see is if I touch IKEA Man, does the music itself change? I don't feel like it's changing. Getting the adhesive off of the leaves is not too bad. It actually is pretty... Careful. If you use this product, be careful, because it did just rip my plant's leaf a little bit. I do want to see if the sounds are the same on another plant. So I'm going to attach it to this little one in front of me and see if we get the same exact vibe, or if it is truly a little bit different. It's slightly different, but I guess that they are both plants, I guess. I'm going to touch the plant here. I'm really squeezing that. I'm really going at it. I guess the music is building.
Now take your hands off.
Now if I release it, I can't really tell if that's like false correlation or not. Whenever I touch it, it does go like ding, 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 ding. What do I sound like? I think based on all of these sound sets that you can see on the screen right now, I think the one that I'm really interested in going for is probably Jungle Brook. I think that sounds kind of fun. And all I should have to do is attach these two electronic sensors to parts of this plant, and we should hear that music pop off right away. This one's very different. It's a lot faster, it's a lot more upbeat, kind of percussion-y. I'm just gonna put in isolated audio to my inputs, and you'll be able to see that on the camera. It does not work on my necklace, it does not work on my dreads, but it does work on IKEA Man. So after opening the Plantwave and doing a couple of tests, I can confidently say I have absolutely no idea what's happening here. You know, I love plants. There's so many types and varieties, and they all share one thing in common. They grow and they grow and they grow, but sometimes that can be a problem. The fact of the matter is, sometimes things can use a little grooming. That's where today's sponsor, Manscaped, comes into play. Their Performance Package 5.0 Ultra features the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra, designed for precision trimming with their dual skin-safe blade heads. So you can go from overgrown and prickly to super smooth. Oh, and it's waterproof, so you can even use it in the shower. And that's not all you get with the Performance Package 5.0. You also get the Weed Whacker 2.0 for those pesky nose hairs, as well as the Crop Soother and the Crop Preserver to provide you that essential moisture and relief. So if you care about cleaning up those unkempt weeds, join the 11 million others who've already put their confidence into Manscaped. And head over to manscaped.com to get your hands on the Performance Package 5.0 Ultra today. And when you use my promo code LAMARD, you'll get 20% off plus free international shipping plus 2 free gifts. That's 20% off plus free shipping and 2 free gifts with promo code LAMARD at manscaped.com. Believe me when I say this, your balls will thank you.
So what's going on here? I mean, my initial thought was that it just somehow completed a circuit which triggered the app to play the music that was pre-downloaded. I mean, all I'd really seen up to this point were people using it on TikTok and the advertisements that Plantwave put out themselves, but after using it, I have to admit, I don't know what's going on here. And I'm clearly not alone in that, because when you Google Plantwave, regardless of the browser that you're using, if it's incognito, if it's not, I tested this on a lot of different people's computers, the first result that pops up every single time is Plantwave's FAQ page describing how exactly the product works and the science behind it. And that tells me a few things. One, the majority of people are skeptical, which explains why Plantwave would put so much Google ad money into ensuring their FAQ was the first thing that you saw. And Plantwave, specifically Joe, fights pretty hard to ensure the legitimacy of the product. After all, Joe, much like me in my YouTube comment section, is still responding to random people on Reddit a year after the post. And the second thing this tells me is that Plantwave actually does have an explanation they want customers to see. So let's talk about how the product works according to their website. So Plantwave apparently works as a kind of translator for plant biodata, and it does this by measuring the tiny shifts in a plant's electrical conductivity during photosynthesis through a method known as data sonification. And what exactly is sonification? Well, I'll leave that explanation to the experts, because despite what some of our leadership says, most experts are experts for a reason.
My name is Sarah Kane. I am a PhD student at the Institute of Astronomy at Cambridge, where I primarily research in a field called galactic archaeology, which means that I study the structure and formation of the Milky Way. And in particular, I'm interested in how we can use stars as a sort of tracer for the history of the galaxy. I'm also legally blind in US parlance, which means, you know, I'm severely sight impaired. I do have some remaining vision, most legally blind people too. And that's given me a really active interest in science accessibility. And in particular, what I'm really interested in is data sonification. So this representation of data as sound, which has really, I think somewhat obvious benefits to people who are visually impaired, but also has, there's emerging evidence that's really useful to people who have no sight impairment at all.
Could you maybe describe what is data sonification?
Yeah, so data sonification is any representation of data as sound that's typically not words. So for instance, if I sit here and tell you about some data, for instance, what a star is doing, that's not generally considered data sonification. And it's also not literal sounds. So I think one of the misconceptions we see most often when we present sonifications of astronomical data is, that this is literal sounds from space. And people say things like, oh, but I thought sound doesn't travel in space and things like that. And then we have to explain, no, this isn't literally the sounds of space. It is a representation of the data we are collecting. And this is directly analogous to data visualization, which is visual representations of data. And these are things we're quite used to seeing on things like, your line graphs, your bar charts, your histograms, your pie charts. The list goes on and on. The data doesn't literally look like that, but it's a useful representation of the data. And I think often because we're so used to seeing data visualizations, people think of data sonification as this sort of like newfangled thing. But actually, we've been doing it a really long time. Probably the most famous example is something called a Geiger counter, which will tell you how much ionizing radiation, like dangerous radiation there is by emitting little clicks. You've maybe even like seen it, like someone goes to like Chernobyl or something like that and has this little thing that goes, and that's data sonification. It's just the sound representation of the data.
So the Plantwave uses electronic sensors to measure a plant's electrical activity and then graphs those movements as waves, resulting in the sounds that we hear. And for those wondering, they use a MIDI or a musical instrument digital interface in order to facilitate that translation. Which, okay, that makes some sense, but I still have a few burning questions. First, how does it really work? I mean, we understand the basics and the science behind it, but what's with the app and the sound sets? Specifically, the licensing of those sounds. Is it like a drum kit or something else? Second, why is it $300? I mean, there's a lot of technology that goes into it, but is it a justified price? And third, why is this their marketing?
You hear plant music for the first time.
This is real.
Is actually something playing?
That's the plant.
That's the tree. Whoa.
Oh shit. Oh,
I feel like I'm floating.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And in order to get those answers, I reached out to a lot, and I mean a lot of people. I'm pretty sure if you've posted about sonification, Plantwave, being an electrophysician, or anything within that realm, you've received several messages from me in the last month. And to my complete and utter surprise, the first person who got back to me accepting an interview is none other than...
My name's Joe Patitucci. I am an artist, and I am also a creator of Plantwave. I'm the CEO of Data Garden, which is the company that produces Plantwave.
And hats off to Joe. I mean, he did a great job explaining his history and Data Garden's history up until this point, which is what we covered a few minutes ago.
It was really like this idea, okay, once you have a name for a thing, you're just exploring, okay, Data Garden, what the heck does that mean? Like, I don't know, like what if we hooked up synths to plants? It was basically...
And during that history lesson, he talks a bit about a fundraiser, which leads us to talking about the price of the product.
I was mostly just doing installations, and then over time, other artists wanted the tools that I was using. So then that's when we did a Kickstarter for MIDI Sprout in like 2014.
Creating an immersive audio environment. This acclaimed work gave us the opportunity to talk.
So we did that, and yeah, that was my first hardware project ever. I think we raised like 30 grand on Kickstarter or something. Like we had to deliver like 300 devices, and we were like, cool, yeah, we can make these for $100 each, no problem. And like it cost way more than that. It ended up costing more than $100 to make them, not even including like developing it, and none of us got paid. We were late, but we were getting ready to deliver it. And I remember we were gonna have like 50 left to sell just on our website. And we were just like, I don't know, what do we charge for these things? Like $100, like we can't do $100. And we like announced to everybody that we were gonna have 50 for sale, and we were gonna like launch it on a specific day. And then we just like had these people calling up. It's like, no, I need it now. Like I need it now. I'm like, well, like name your price. Like I'll give you $500 for one. I was like, all right. And so we put them on sale, and like they all got sold.
Wow.
We were like, what? Ever since then, like the price point has remained the same, but like with inflation, I guess it's kind of less.
Okay. He did talk a little bit more about the how.
Yeah, what we're doing is we're measuring these slight changes in conductivity through the plant. So we're putting two sensors on the plant. We're measuring how much connection there is between these 2 points. And that is largely related to how much water there is between those 2 points. And a plant is a living being. It's photosynthesizing. So it uses water to move chloroplasts around. So you have these changes in that amount of connection. So change over time becomes a wave. Then what we do is we like always have frequency. So we take that frequency and we basically like translate it to like the nearest like kind of audible note. We scale that to a key, and then we route those note messages to like different instruments.
This installation made use of natural biorhythms of tropical plants to control synthesizers in real time.
So yeah, what you're hearing is like, it's called data sonification. We're all familiar with data visualization, like a weather map or a graph. But this is a way of being able to listen to data from a plant like in real time in a way that, yeah, we're able to like easily digest it.
Which at this point we mostly know. The thing that we don't really know about is the details of the sound sets.
In the past, you've kind of talked about and mentioned that those presets will vary in their accuracy depending on what the preset looks like. Could you talk a little bit more about like what that musical preset is and how that works within the app?
Yeah. Great question. So yeah, the presets that we have, they're called sound sets, and they're basically just like different ways of expressing the data from the plant. So one of the design challenges in any form of like data visualization or in data sonification, in this case, you could go hyper literal, a very literal monitoring system. In that case, you might not scale any of the data to a key. However, the challenge with that is that then humans wouldn't listen to it long enough to be able to interpret or to hear larger shifts that happen in a plant over a longer period of time. So the decision to scale things into a pentatonic key, a pentatonic scale, is like a human ergonomic decision.
Which is all great, but while doing research for this interview, I found a post that he made on Reddit talking to someone who's skeptical. And I was specifically concerned over the portion talking about how quote unquote direct the sound sets really are. After all, if they're not direct translations, we're not really hearing the plant, right? So I asked him about that.
So some of the sound sets are designed to be a little bit more literal. So one of those would be like signal, which is just a sine wave. And so that's a sine wave basically just following the activity level of the plant. But then some of them, we might limit the range of all the instruments to like 1 octave, in which case like the data kind of wraps. And then some of the sound sets kind of like integrate both kind of compositional practices for like monitoring of data or having a pleasant experience. And the reason we're able to do that is because we have multiple instruments all being controlled by the same data source, right? The same waves. Now, you can basically have each one of those instruments representing the wave at a different sample rate. So you could have like really high resolution picture of that wave through like something that is like maybe a sine wave that like has like, it's more like legato, so it's like sing-songy, or maybe like a very fast arpeggiated staccato kind of sound, so you're hearing like and you're hearing wave. So you can have that as one instrument, and then you can have another instrument that's say bass, right, that's only allowed to be a sample of that wave like once every 5 or 10 seconds. So now you have these two instruments that are giving you a different like flavor of representing that wave, and then you can have anything in between. I think the first one that we give people, I think like celestial being, that is a really good representation of one that gives you like high resolution of the data through like the electric piano, but then like lower resolution in terms of maybe the bass and some other things. So yeah, that's how that works.
Which to me, like, I get it. I understand why you'd put a pretty sounding sound set as your base, but if it's not the most accurate, I don't know if that's the best representation to what a lot of the marketing for this product is. Do you know what I mean? I feel like it would be really beneficial to the customers of Plantwave to add like a footnote or something into the sound sets to let the customers know what it is they're interacting with, especially because they deal with so many skeptics. But then again, maybe their target customer doesn't care at all about how accurate it is.
It's basically like the right brain versus the left brain. You know, so you have like the hyper analytical folks who are like super skeptical, and then you have like the hyper intuitive folks who are super into it but are also like projecting a level of meaning on it that like maybe beyond what's happening. Like somebody will go in the comments on one of our videos and just be like, oh, like I knew this since I was a child that plant sounded like that because I heard that when I walked through the forest. And you know, some people have synesthesia and they might have heard that when they walk through the forest or something like that. no. So they're like, oh yeah, it's like these guys are trying to like say that these plants have these specific, like a plant sounds like a piano. Like, you're crazy. It doesn't sound like a piano. And it's like, yeah, it doesn't sound like a piano. And like clouds that are over the city right now are not green, red, orange. Like, rain isn't purple.
Which, fair enough. Nothing on that website says that a tree is going to sound like Beethoven. They don't claim that on the website when you're ordering, but in a lot of their advertising on TikTok or on YouTube, that kind of is the claim that those videos are making, right? From the outside, it does look a little deceptive when almost all of your marketing is talking about how a certain plant directly sounds. And you don't correct people who verify that idea. But that's probably because confirmation bias is kind of a major selling point of this product. And I do want to make something clear that when you're actually buying the product, they do put a lot of information in front of your face that's like the science of it, how it works, why it works, etc. Which ultimately I think is a good thing. I do think it would be a little bit different if they didn't kind of clean up the messaging. So based on that, I asked Joe what he would say to the people who are skeptical of the product, and this is what he had to say.
I just say like try it out and like just notice how different a plant's patterns are throughout the day, and you can choose to attribute meaning to that or not, but it's happening. You know, I think they want to hear me say something ridiculous so they can just be like, cool, I don't have to deal with thinking about this. For the skeptics, like, I want them to know that like sonification is a very real thing that they're going to experience a lot more of.
Which, okay, but I still haven't received an answer to my question and the thing I'm most skeptical about. The sound sets. What's with the licensing it warns you about when you try to record your plant's sounds? So I asked him.
The purpose is like it's just basically, it's like a generative art project that I've created, and if somebody like releases that as their own music, that becomes a problem. Or if like somebody that's like greenwashing their like chemical company wants to use it for their like, I want to restrict that use. But I'll tell you a cool story. In addition to that, we found out why too. And this was such an edge case. One of our customers at one point, she didn't have an understanding of this. I think it was before we put the warning up or whatever. She had like some herbalism class or something that she was teaching and would use like Plantwave in it and like, you know, just talk about it. And then she wanted to, you know, or people in her class were like, oh, I'd love to have this music on our recording. So she's like, okay, cool. So she made an album and put it on Spotify. Now, the sound set she used for it was points on waves, which is like everything is limited to one octave. And I think at the time it was like before we had like a variable arpeggiator. So like the intervals between like timing intervals were like pretty constant.
Okay.
And so if you take one octave pentatonic, that means you have 5 notes that it can play. She recorded it for 8 hours. So she put an 8-hour recording of basically a plant triggering 5 notes. And so I don't know the math on this, but like it's very likely that if you do that, if somebody else hooks up their Plantwave, there's going to be a point at which like it'll play a sequence of notes that's very similar to the 8-hour recording.
Yeah.
So what happened was all these people started having their Plantwave content flagged by all the content moderator things. So they would go and they post a TikTok video and it would say like, oh, you're using somebody else's music and not crediting. And so it was taking all these people's stuff down. We were like, what? And then we were able to figure out who it was. And we're just like, oh, hey, like, just send your friends a Dropbox link maybe, or like whatever, you know. We were able to like work it out. But that was just like such an edge case in like music copyright law.
So the thing that keeps popping into my mind is the Spotify issue. If the stuff that they added adds a little bit of variance and randomness, does that not also take away from the purpose of the product? I don't know. Maybe that's for you to decide. Something I think that is a good thing is that they don't seem to care too much about people using the Plantwave to make their own music. They mostly care about the way that that music is representative of the company. That being said, by the sounds of it, Joe and Data Garden are working on a project where the details would absolutely need to be accurate.
I have a theory that eventually it'll come down to like the note, like the note in the moment, triggered instead of by a plant, which we're doing now, to like representing something in your human body. So what we're doing with plants, we can also do with wearable data. So what we're working on doing is basically creating what will be like a soundtrack to your life, or like maybe responsive music. You know, in gaming, that's a thing. What you're doing in a game like determines music. So it's like responsive music for the game of life, where like the music is representing something about your biological state in the moment, so that you can have a deeper, it can help in like biofeedback entrainment and things like that.
Do you think for your purposes it's more of an artistic outlet for the consumer?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's definitely going to be more of the scientific. I think what we're measuring with plants, it's a lot less easy to tell what meaning there is, other than like it's entertaining, and you're also getting a sense of like how actually active plants are. We would like, maybe if you're meditating, the more connected your breath is to your heart, the more instruments get unlocked in your session.
The thing I'm still questioning at the end of this is pretty simple. What is the value of this product? On one hand, it's interesting how you can interact with the world around you in a different way. But on the other hand, the fact that the sound sets are not really always an accurate representation of what it's supposed to be showing you takes away from that novelty. But I think that Joe himself put it best.
We found this like novel use for sonification for our own like kind of entertainment.
At the end of the day, I think with a product like this, you really get what you want out of it. Like, I've done a lot of meditation in my life in a lot of different ways and in different environments. And do I think that this is something that would be additive to that experience for me personally? No, I don't. But I do see the angle of how it can make people kind of feel more grounded, even if that's not necessarily what the product is doing. A lot of people will self-prescribe meaning to the sounds that come out of the Plantwave as something additive to their meditation. And that's fine. And for those people, I'm sure you can't really put a price tag on what that experience is. But I think in the end, for me, it's just an interesting example of how what we want to be true can alter the way that we perceive information. Because sonification is very real, and there's a lot of extremely interesting use cases for sonification and data representation. But if you want to believe that your plant is talking to you, then you're going to believe that your plant is talking to you. So I don't know. I want to know what you think. The person watching this video, I would love if you could leave a comment. Tell me if you would or wouldn't use this product and why. Do you think there's a use case for it? I'm myself a little bit inconclusive. I think for me, it's like I told Joe.
So yeah, I've liked it so far. I don't know if I'm the typical customer though.
Yeah.
So like for me personally, I don't know if I necessarily would spend the $300 again on it.
Oh, and if you want to see the full interview with Joe and learn about some videos that are coming up, you're in luck, because I am launching a Patreon. Yeah, I'm launching a Patreon where you're going to be able to find things like full unedited interviews, sneak peeks of videos that are coming up, exclusive links to a private, very exclusive Discord channel, and most excitingly, a very unique digital scrapbook that will document every individual video that I post on this channel, along with a few other cool things. So if you're interested in that, please consider looking in my description for the link and additional details. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it so far in this video, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel to see more whatever I think is interesting on that day. See you next month.
I'm really wondering what Plantwave can make this apple sound like while I bite into its flesh.